What's up, everybody? It's Trey Smith back with another episode of the College GameTime podcast. Our goal, and I think we are quickly becoming the #1 show for American athletic football and basketball fans. Hopefully we can keep that momentum going as we continue to dive into realignment season, and soon we'll be transitioning into football season. So today I'm going to talk through a couple different things as it pertains to where things are at. Obviously, there's a lot of rumors swirling around. So as always, I hope that I can provide some information to you, just some factual information to help you process through these rumors and things as they continue to fly around. But before I get into it, you know what to do. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit like, please hit subscribe, leave a comment at the end, share it with a friend, and help continue to grow this channel. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple or one of the other streaming platforms, I just ask that you would give it a 5-star review, leave a comment, whatever you're able to do to help drive this thing up into the algorithm, the College GameTime podcast. I would sincerely appreciate you doing so, and I sincerely appreciate your support for listening and or watching here on YouTube. So, what do I want to start with? So today I was on the 365 Sports Show. They had me as a call-in guest. I pretty much just sort of regurgitated a lot of what I said in yesterday's episode. Then they had asked some questions, and I, did my best to communicate clearly my answers to their questions. It's feel like it went fine. It's kind of weird being a call-in guest versus, talking into a camera. I'm so accustomed to doing this that like talking to my phone was kind of weird for me, but hey, anyways, so a shout out to David and Craig Smoke. They invited me on. I was able to do that, be a part of their show. They've built a fantastic, phenomenal platform. They do a great job. So anyways, shout out to those guys. Much appreciated. Don't know if they're even going to watch this. Probably not, but I appreciate it. So I just wanted to shout them out at the top of this episode. If you're interested in it, it was on today's stream, August 14th. Just their daily 3 to 6 show. I was in the 3:35 time slot. Which would have been about 35 minutes into the show. Then the next thing, the AP poll dropped today, put a deal up on Twitter. You guys know, like right now, the AP poll means nothing. By week 4, this thing is going to be so flipped up, turned upside down, except for maybe the top 5 or so teams, top 6, 7 or whatever. But Tulane, they're in the top 25, coming in at 24. I'm curious, if you're watching this, did they get snubbed? They just went 12-2. They upset USC in the Cotton Bowl. They've got their quarterback coming back. I know they've had some roster turnover, but not that much, I don't think. Especially, their guy who, kind of had a breakout season last year, and their quarterback, did they get snubbed at number 24? I mean, should this have been more top 20 or top 15? Think about any other team in the country. And I think David Smoke actually started to make this point after I got off on my call was that if Tulane had any other team name in the country, not any other team, but, another team in the country like a Texas or an A&M or, Oklahoma State, whatever, coming off a season like they just had, would those schools be ranked number 24? So anyways, I'm curious to know your thoughts. Did they get snubbed? Should they have been a little bit higher? And then also on the AP poll, the UTSA Roadrunners, they did receive some votes as well. I wouldn't be shocked if the American Conference has a couple teams in the top 25 early in the season. Now, obviously that's going to fluctuate as that non-conference schedule plays out. I know UTSA, man, they open the season with Houston, and then they've got Tennessee not long after that. So that's going to be a hard-hitting non-conference schedule, but will be tremendous in preparing them for the conference schedule. So, so if you have any other thoughts on the AP poll, let me know. I don't put too much stock into it early season. I mean, what was it, a couple seasons ago when Iowa State was like a top 10 matchup, week 2 of that season. And then by season's end, I don't even think Iowa State was bowl eligible, and I don't remember what Iowa ended up doing. But anyways, so today I want to get into Jim Williams's report from this morning. He put it out on Twitter. I don't know if it was this morning or if it was like in the middle of the night or when it was, the timing of it. But I'm going to read to you what he put out there. Most of you have probably seen this, and then I want to discuss a few things. Oliver Luck, the newly hired consultant for the PAC conference, will be starting the process of working on what teams should be added to the PAC-4 from the American and the Mountain. A list of about 12 teams will be reviewed. This does not mean a partnership or a merger is off the table. It just means they have a process in place. So I want to expound on this further. But speaking of Oliver Luck, if you've been on Twitter today, you would know, or Twitter X, you know that Oliver Luck was visiting the Florida Atlantic football program today. In fact, he spoke to the team earlier. That was obviously a pre-scheduled event that was probably set up months ago. So it's just ironic that now as he's stepping in as the consultant for the PAC, and there are some rumors and there are some smoke, and I've received some what I believe to be valid information that there's at least mutual interest between the remaining PAC and the American as it pertains to a possible merger that he would be right in the middle of, right on the front end of stepping into this role. He's visiting FAU. So has nothing to do with any of this. I guarantee you it was pre-scheduled, but as some people pointed out on Twitter, that doesn't mean that offline, him and Tom Herman and the AD weren't having a little bit of sidebar conversations in regards to what's going on. So let me digress and let me get back to the tweet. So Oliver Luck, he was brought in to help rebuild the PAC conference. Plain and simple. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So obviously, in doing his due diligence, he's going to explore, and I said this yesterday on the show as option one, is he's got to look at how can we rebuild this conference just from scratch. And what I mean when I say scratch is essentially poaching teams. And who are they going to poach from? They're going to poach from the American and the Mountain West. That would be this part of the plan. Put yourself in Oliver Luck's shoes for a second. You get hired by the PAC to come consult and rebuild this conference. In day one, are you going to step in and say, hey guys, our best bet is to go merge with a G5 conference? No. Even if you know stepping into it that like that is the ultimate best outcome, you're not going to lead with that, right? You're going to at least say, all right, let's put together a list of teams. Let's craft a list of teams that we can all collectively support joining the conference. And then from there, he's going to put that out in front of potential media partners and get a market value of, say, it's 10 to 12 teams, including the 4 remaining. So that would be, 6 to 8 teams that they've vetted or that they're would be pulling from the American and the Mountain West, put them on this list and go to a media partner and say, all right, what's the market value here? Right? That's kind of what that first step is going to be in that process. And as Jim said in his report or in his tweet, does that mean a merger is off the table? No, it's not. But at the same time, Luck has to make sure that he's doing his due diligence in being effective at what he was brought in to do, which was to rebuild the conference. And you can look at it a bunch of different ways. You could look at the different AAU institutions in the American and some of the big city schools, and then go combine those with some of the Mountain West schools that have high athletic profiles, but they also better not be just dirt poor in academics. They better have some status there as well. But where does the American fall in all of this? Well, let me say it this way. So there's a couple things to consider, as I mentioned yesterday. There's the exit fees, and the exit fees are due by the potential, the exiting universities. And in the midst of this, Stanford is still the ultimate domino. So let me start here for a second. Luck has to put together a plan that will appease Stanford. Why? To keep Stanford from going independent. Like, Stanford has to feel like sticking this thing out is better than us just going independent. Oh, and as I mentioned yesterday, that ACC door needs to be closed, locked shut, and the Big Ten door needs to be closed, locked shut. And now Luck needs to put together a plan that says, okay, it makes Stanford say, okay, yeah, we can get behind that. We could support that. That, you know, let's move forward with this. So I guess as an AAC fan, what do we need to happen? What does someone that's following this from an American Athletic Conference perspective, what do they want to happen? Like, how do we get from option 1 to option 2? What do I mean when I say that? How do we get Luck to pivot from option 1, which is to rebuild the conference from scratch and trying to attract teams from the Mountain West and the American, to option 2, which would be a merger? And again, a merger means merging with a conference 100%. I'm still not understanding why we're still floating this notion out there that Aresco is going to meet with Oliver Luck about how to merge and leave teams out. Understand this. If Mike Aresco and Oliver Luck are in fact having meetings with each other, which I know there's rumors floating around, if that is in fact happening, what you have to be assured of is that that's going to be discussing a merger. Aresco is not going to meet with Oliver Luck to discuss Oliver Luck poaching his teams. In fact, Mike Aresco, based off how things just played out with essentially getting his heart ripped out by the Big 12, he's probably going to be even more, I would hope, ironclad with how he's going to negotiate, more pit bullish, and how he's going to negotiate these early exit fees if American teams are, in fact, considering making that jump, or it gets to a point where they are. There's some steps that have to happen for us to get there. But, you know, Mike Aresco is in position to make this very, very tough for teams that would want to consider jumping ship to be a part of this reformed PAC conference that's not a merger. I mean, he could. And now, SMU, not going to affect them. Right? Money is just not an issue for them. I don't want to sit here and go through the list of every team's financial status because I don't know what it is. All I'm saying is from a buyout exit fee standpoint, Aresco would be in position to make things very tough, very difficult. So as an AAC fan, what we are hoping for is that Oliver Luck hits some roadblocks along the way that the other member institutions, the 4 remaining institutions, see. And it's like, okay, so what are some examples of some potential roadblocks? Well, I just talked about one being the exit fees, right? And how high and you know, the unwillingness, particularly on the Mountain West side of the conference, of being willing to negotiate those down, mainly talking about San Diego State. The other roadblock, or maybe I should say that's working against the PAC right now, is time. Time is not on their side. So if they're going to try and do this whole thing from scratch, that's a lot of moving pieces that have to come together in a very short window of time. And then, of course, the media partner. I mean, like, I said it on the show earlier today on the 365 show, and I think I said it yesterday, like, look, I mean, this is a conference that couldn't land a deal with teams that were desired by the Big Ten and the Big 12. So what's all of a sudden going to change? And then, of course, if you're an American Athletic Conference team, wow, that's so great in affirming that the PAC conference has chosen you to try to be a part of their rebuild. But one of the things you're going to have to assess is, are we going to get the same amount of exposure by going there? Because right now we're in a situation where we're being broadcast on ESPN. Now, look, some of it is streaming. Don't get me wrong, but it is ESPN Plus. And you do get a lot of linear coverage as a part of that, not necessarily the level of some of the bigger conferences, but still, you'd have to evaluate that. And then you'd also have to evaluate the potential like the actual financial value of it. So if he hits some of those roadblocks, you know, time being against him, the exit fees, no media partners, and even Aresco, not that he would come out doing this, because I think Aresco, is ultimately going to want to try and work with Oliver Luck on a merger, but like he could make it very tough in terms of exit fees. So the first thing is we want to see them start to hit roadblocks. And some of them may already be happening. Okay. I don't know. Again, I'm not behind closed doors. I'm not in the meeting rooms. I'm just looking and seeing this thing I'm taking some of the information I receive that I believe to be valid and trying to combine it with some simple logic. So that's the first thing. The second thing is for Aresco to present a plan or a scheduling module, something that appeases Stanford as well as the other three institutions, which he has the resources in conference right now to make happen. Also, what Aresco has probably already done is gone to ESPN and said, hey, if we were to bring these four in to help absorb this time zone you desperately need, what could we negotiate this thing up to? I don't think it's crazy to say that Aresco could have an argument where he could negotiate a more lucrative media contract by negotiating up with ESPN rather than, or better, more than what a rebuilt PAC could get. Meaning, I think Aresco could potentially negotiate a better revenue deal with his ESPN contract that he currently has that's higher than what a reformed PAC conference rebuilding from the AAC and Mountain West. You can disagree with me on that. That's fine. But it's something to think about if you're an American Athletic Conference team. Again, okay, am I going to get the same amount of exposure? Am I going to get the same amount of revenue? All those different things. Plus, what's the buyout? What's the exit fee going to be? So I think if we start to see Luck hit some roadblocks along the way here, and Aresco can present a well-crafted plan, I think what we would start to see is things really heat up in terms of a merger, right? I'm still going to stick to what I said yesterday, which is what is option one? Option one is completely rebuilding the PAC. Why is that? Because again, Luck's not going to come in and say, hey, our only hope is to merge with a G5 conference. Even if he thinks that, even if that's what he sees as the ultimate outcome, you're not going to lead with that. Okay, so let's go through the process here. Let's lay out what the teams are. Let's get a market value from a media partner. Let's start kicking the tires on some of these things. And then from there go, okay, the other option is we can merge. And I get it, right? The Mountain West versus the American. The Mountain West, I haven't heard or seen anything that there's actual some mutual interest there. As I have heard with the American. I also think what you have to consider with the Mountain West merger with the Mountain West is you're not going to hit all the time zones. You don't have a conference that can hit every time slot, I should say, on a Saturday lineup. Whereas if those four teams join the American, that problem's solved. So that's really it for tonight. I think the last thing I want to make sure I reemphasize is I know there's rumors going around right now that Aresco and Oliver Luck are meeting. I haven't received any of that. That doesn't mean it's not happening. I mean, I'm not like Mr. in the grapevine here. I'm just letting you know, I have not received that on any kind of valid, as far as from a valid source. However, what I can tell you pretty confidently is that if they are in fact meeting, it's discussing a potential merger, like 100% merger. And I would imagine it's a meeting where Aresco is laying out, look, here's what ESPN can do. Here's what we can do with scheduling. Here's how we can make this thing happen. Here's how we can divide the divisions. Here's what we can do with the non-football sports. What do you think? And then if Luck takes that back to the four institutions and mainly Stanford are like, we like that, we might have some action. So, what I want you to be, at least from my standpoint, I don't see any world where Aresco and Luck are having meetings about how Luck can poach from the American Conference and or merge with the American Conference by leaving teams out. Because, again, that wouldn't be a merger. So you guys let me know what you think in the comments. Do you feel like the PAC stands a better chance at trying to rebuild from scratch, or do you think they need to go with a merger? Why or why not? Option 1 or option 2, and let me know why. And as always, I will see y'all tomorrow. That's it for me today. Trey Smith, College Game Time.